Congratulations. Thanks for coming in. I lowered my seat so you'd be taller than me.
Thanks, buddy.
We do what we can.
Yeah.
I need all the help.
I do have to start here. So I'm at the NCAA games on Saturday. And somebody's sitting in the club level, and all of a sudden they flash your mug on the screen. And I don't know if I'm sure you noticed this. People have Bills flags, banners. We're at the NCAA men's basketball tournament. There's Bills garb everywhere, but they flash you up on the screen, and all of a sudden people start going nuts. I was laughing out loud. It was so hilarious. And, you didn't even notice it at first. Then you looked up, and you're like, oh, geez.
Not much embarrasses me, but I was not ready for that.
Yeah, right. I could tell. It was kind of the awkward wave.
Oh, my God. It was hey.
You were not silky smooth with that. You're like, oh, yeah, hi.
I was not ready. It was during live action. I'm watching, and you just feel something, changing on you. And I was looked up at the screen. I'm like, oh no!
Yeah,
it was like he saw somebody. It was like he was at a party and he saw someone way on the other side. Oh hey!
I wasn't ready.
That was great.
It's been an absolutely unexpected and an enormous week for us. Give us your take now, a little synopsis of what those days were like last week. And because it was a roller coaster, you went from the McKissick stuff to the Von Miller stuff, and I'm sure you were in the midst of all of it at the same time. But give us a little quick synopsis.
Yeah, we thought obviously those were the low light and the highlight that you hit there, but we thought we added some good pieces. It really started before free agency with Rodger Saffold, just a guy that we looked at 3 years ago when he ended up signing with Tennessee, and I've always admired him and heard great things about him when he was released by the Titans. We've got Cromer here now who has worked with him and spoke very highly of just. It's amazing for a guy who's in his early 30s, and we'll talk about Vaughn at some point. But he could still do it, and you saw him still playing at a starter's level. And again, the intangibles, the things that we talk about, and we're excited about adding him. And then we obviously attacked the other end of the line too, with the defense, with Settle and Daquan, and then getting Jordan Phillips back. Shaq and obviously the big one was getting Von Miller in here, but you guys know it, from the draft last year to every year we've been here, we've tried to attack the lines. That's what keeps me up at night is not being strong in the trenches more than any other position.
Yeah, and I think we anticipated. You almost had to I remember we were talking to you at the Combine. You had 6 defensive linemen on expiring contracts. Just from a sheer number standpoint, we anticipated you addressing that. I just think we were all wondering, how is that going to fit? Is he going to go all in on free agency? Is it going to be a mix and match thing, draft free agency? But, you swung a big bat early there on the D-line on the interior, and you look at the makeup of these guys that you have now to rotate through there with Ed, obviously, and others. You got some pile movers, man. Yeah. Guys that are going to push the pocket because, those guys, they'd be on a moving van. Those are guys you want moving furniture in your house. Those guys, they're going to give you some nice push up front. I know your D-line finished strong at the end of the year last year in terms of winning the line of scrimmage battles that we hear Coach talk so much about. These three guys are going to do some damage for you on a weekly basis, I would think. Yeah, they should. Obviously, Ed is the total opposite of he's so quick off the ball. He's 285. He's going to win that way. What are people going to try to do to slow down Ed? They're going to try and run at him. That's how you try and beat those guys because you're not going to beat him. He's going to be quicker, faster, more explosive than most of the guys he's going against. So, to offset that, we want to make sure we can be stout up there next to him, whether it's Jordan, whether it's Daquan, whether it's Settle. And, again, overall, our D-line played well last year. There were just some moments that maybe we weren't as stout as we wanted to be against the run, and then there were some moments where we got pressure, but we weren't able to finish and get them down, and that was the impetus to signing Vaughn. And again, didn't know, truly wouldn't have put a lot of odds that we would have landed a guy at his caliber because there's so many things that go in. It's free agency; they can choose. You kind of assume he's going to go back and defend the title with the Rams, and but ultimately, we convinced him to consider us, and worked out.
It wasn't alone either. I guess you got some help recruiting him. Josh was calling. Tell me about that story about some of the players that you have here now reaching out to Vaughn saying, it's not bad up here.
Yeah, I think some of these guys keep up. They want to know what's going on, and Josh, and I talk a decent amount, through this process of guys he's hearing out there, I hear, and he said, hey, I heard Vaughn's considering, and I was like, sure, go, we can't really talk to him, go recruit him. So him and then Diggs happened to be, I walked into Ken Dorsey's office and they were FaceTiming. And so I said, hey, we may be working on Vaughn. And I knew they knew each other. And he's like, yeah, he already hit me up once. I said, well, hit him back up.
Call him again.
And do that. And then, Bruce Smith, your ex-teammate.
I was on that text loop with Bruce and the guy, yeah.
Yeah, and Bruce was excited. Bruce got on a call with me and Sean, and we just talked about, our front and everything. And he's obviously, as great of a pass rusher as he is, he knows and what it takes, and he knew Vaughn from some of their past, and so we talked about what he knew about him. We had done a lot of research on him, and then I know he reached out to Vaughn as well.
One of the things too, and I've heard this from a couple different things, Bruce being one of them, that said one of the things that maybe the Bills needed last year was a guy who could finish it. And I've heard this not just from Bruce, but a guy who, like, when you need, they've got one last chance to do something. You need a guy that can finish the game and come in and have Josh kneel down.
Yeah.
I've heard that from a couple of different guys. How hard, it's really, for me, I mean, how do you pick a guy, like, I guess Vaughn's a guy like that, but that has the ability to make it at the right time? Forget about getting 20 sacks, just get 10 sacks and make them timely, kind of thing. Vaughn seems to have that aura about him.
Yeah, I think, if you looked, closely at the end of the season and then, of course, their playoff run and, watched every one of those snaps, plus went back and even watched some of his, Denver, but ultimately spent a lot of time on what did he look like second half of the season as a Ram, and then how did he help them win that Super Bowl? What was his role? And I would say it was a large role, and it was, even if he wasn't getting them down, he helped somebody else get him down, and that's what I'm talking about. A guy that if he's either going to get him down or he's going to chase that guy into one of our other up front guys. So it's a closer, it's a finisher, a guy that just knows how to rush the passer. And yeah, is he the same athlete he was 10 years ago? No, but as that's gone down, his awareness, his smarts, his feel, all those things, he's got it. He's a cagey vet in that way.
And it's clear that, this kind of shifted perhaps your whole free agency plan, because when this kind of a player becomes available, it's going to be a giant commitment. So now you got to go talk to Jim and Kevin and say, hey, how many fiscal hoops do we have to jump through to make this work? Yeah. And, you don't want, I know you're always big on being cap strong year over year over year over year. In a contract like this, you got to be careful it doesn't hamstring you. So how many fiscal hoops did you guys jump through to kind of bring this to fruition?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about if there was a premium pass rusher, Vaughn, there were several others out there, that if it came to that point, how would we structure it? What would it look like? And so as we were navigating this process, we were spending some money, and so we start going, we got to be careful here if we're going to, because you never know when it's going to heat up.
Right.
And that wasn't a first day out of the gate. Right. We didn't know that either.
Right.
And so, Joby Brandon, his agent, stayed in regular contact with Kevin once the negotiating period started, and we talked about it, where they were, where we were, and just had some soft, parameter conversations, and ultimately wanted to make sure that if we were holding this money aside, and that, is Vaughn truly in? Because, maybe it felt like early on he's probably going back to the Rams. It just seemed to make sense, some of the things you hear, read, but trusted Joby, and he was spot on that Vaughn was very serious about the Buffalo Bills. And listen, the Rams were very much in it. There were some other teams too, but it was legit interest that we obviously saw that come through.
Because that's a giant piece to kind of leave resources on the side over here, almost like a just in case.
Yep.
I mean, how did you sleep the last few days? Because that's a big chunk to leave over here. And you might be watching other pieces that you might had interest in, but you said, well, we're going to wait on that.
Yep.
And if we can't get it, we can't get it, because we might get this big fish instead, and it's worth holding out and waiting on. How much do you move the money around and like. I always think about you when you guys do the draft and doing the mock drafts and contingency plans and all of that stuff, so you're prepared for just about anything. I got to believe it can't be too much terribly different with free agency, especially when you're dealing with a big piece like that. So you've got to move all the puzzle pieces around.
Yeah, I mean, it pulled us out of some conversations with other guys.
Yeah.
And, ultimately, if we didn't land him, we knew that, hey, there's a scenario here, probably a, more than 50% chance, that we're not going to land him. And then we'll pivot to something else.
Okay.
Whether it's another pass rusher at a lower level or a different position, we'll save it. And listen, who knows? Maybe there would have been a trade option down the line to save it for as well. So, we knew that there were conversations that we had before this was done, and since then that, we can't go there at this position, whatever position it is, because we've allocated here to find another pass rusher to go with our young guys. Just really wanted a veteran guy with some legit experience. Didn't know if you'd get Devon's level, but something, with AJ, Boogie, and Greg still being 3 young players.
All right, so yeah, this deal with Vaughn and some of the other conversations pulled you out of conversations with other guys. So what conversations are we still in? I mean, what's next for you? I'm certainly free agency still going on.
Adam Schefter's still reporting.
Yeah, we've still got Mike Girardi's also reporting. Duke Johnson's on the thing. You signed Matt Barkley this morning.
Yeah.
Case Keenum, you made the trade for. Now you've got 8 picks in the draft, right? Instead of 9.
Instead of 9, yep.
Give us what's on the front burner this morning?
Yeah, I mean, we're obviously the big thing that I said at my press conference the other day is I had it in the works with Case and Barkley. That was all. Nothing was finalized. We were still. They were going to have to restructure Case's deal, and we ultimately had to wait on them to do that to be able to assume, his cap. And so part of it was they ate some money, his roster bonus, and then it was also with the agent after he got that bonus that they would redo his deal, and so we got that down to a more manageable number for us. So that was worth that our last pick of the draft to do that. Case is a guy that we. When it was going to be Josh's rookie year, we really recruited him hard, but the money got very high. He went to Denver. I think it was around 18 plus or something. And so, but always thought a lot of him, and really, as a gutsy player, that has come in, started some games this year, has started in the past, and just like with Mitch last year, we wanted to be able to. Pivot to a guy if something happens to Josh. And then obviously we've had a great history with Barkley. He's come in and played games for us as well. So this was a chance to add 2 veterans at a similar time that one has played for us and had success. The other one's had success around the league. Just in case, we know the way Josh plays. I have to fuss at him sometimes to get down, but
slide, bro.
We we want to feel free to tell him anytime you see him. But you always, that scenario, if you lose your starter for 3 or 4 games, can you go at least 2-2, 3-1?
Can you win games?
Yeah.
Just some games, yeah.
And we feel like adding these 2 guys, we can do that.
O.J. Howard, to me, was kind of an interesting addition for you guys. And it was funny because Steve and I were having this discussion on the air. In free agency, more often than not, when you're at the top of the market, you're going to be paying top market value, or sometimes you even overpay. You guys have the advantage of being this really contending team that people want to come to, so maybe it's not as much of a burden for you guys. But we were thinking, okay, you look at receiver, and the cost to sign a top-flight receiver is like $18, $19, $20 million now. Tight end is a much lower-priced position, but if you get a guy that you feel fits you well, you don't have to pay as much of a premium just because the position premium isn't as high. Yeah. And we were curious as to what direction you guys were going to go in free agency. And I'm not saying you're not going to go after, a receiver at some point, but tight ends seemed to make a lot of sense to us. And then, you get OJ on a 1-year kind of prove-it deal for him, coming off injury history. I mean, that could be a real boom signing for you if Ken can find a good role for him in the offense.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that was highly touted coming out of Alabama. He had a really strong senior year, and goes to Tampa first round. I think it was like the 19th, 20th pick, somewhere around there. And, ultimately, a couple things. One, he tears his Achilles a couple years ago, Brady's first year, and Cameron Brate kind of rose up, and then obviously they brought Gronk down there. So it limited his opportunities. But we feel he's a big, straight line, fast target, good hands, and will, help keep some of the pressure off of Dawson, and also, if something happens to Dawson, you feel like you got a guy you can turn to. So, we're going to build this. We're going to try to find various weapons, whether it's a running back, whether it's a receiver, tight ends, whatever it is, and just give it to Ken and let him use it. That's kind of was the philosophy that we had with Dabes when he was here of let's get as many good pieces, a variety of pieces, and so that we can mix up the personnel packages and how we do it. So, I'm sure we're going to have some, plenty of options of 2 tight ends as well.
Yeah.
OJ's one of those guys who came out. He's got a ton of traits. Yeah. He's big, strong, fast, looks the part. I mean, he's just got all that. When you talk about this draft coming up, what traits are you looking for in this? Position-wise, you don't really seem to have. Maybe you can say maybe just get deeper at wideout or get a corner or something, but you don't really have that positional emergency. Yeah. What do you think about this draft coming up? You pick at 25. It's a crapshoot as to who's going to be on the board. Yeah. But what are you thinking? I mean, what positions are you looking at? What guys are you hope fall to? I know you don't want to let the cat out of the bag. But just tell me who you're going to draft.
Yeah. Give me a little more time, and I'll give you that.
Going around and around. I was like, where's this thing landing?
No, I think ultimately what we're trying to do now is fill these holes so that we don't have to say, oh my gosh, if I get out of the second round and I don't have this player, we're in deep trouble. And we lost some players, as Chris mentioned earlier, in free agency, and again appreciate all those guys. But I think there's depth at various positions in the draft, and I think there's players that I've seen through whether it was the Senior Bowls, the Combine, and through the process, or I saw them in the fall that I do think will come in here and help us. Maybe not an immediate starter. Maybe so. I think it'll depend on what position we go with. But we're going to try and find the best players. We love it that we got picks in every round. And I don't think this draft, the way I would summarize it as I sit here today, is I don't think there's going to be a push for these, I got to get in the top 5, top 7, depending on how this quarterback thing shakes out. But I do think there's going to be a lot of depth, and I think we'll find, really good players at 25 and then down in the second and third.
Yeah, I think they're already talking about Joe trying to get out at 5 or get out at 7, and I think it's going to be hard. I don't think as many people are looking, at least that's the sense we get. Like, people aren't trying to jump up too high because the true elites seem to be fewer and further between this year as compared to previous years. I don't know if I guess it's everybody's preference, like what do you like, what's your flavor kind of thing, but it's just, it just seems like the talk is, well, Aiden Hutchinson wouldn't even be the 4th defensive end a year or 2 ago or whatever, because this, that, and the other, but production's production. I wanted to ask you, and this is a little bit off the beaten path here, about the practice squad rules, because each of the last 2 years, you guys have had the luxury of having an expanded squad. You can even have veterans on there. You can protect 4 every week, and you guys kept it at 16 for a second year of the pandemic. I believe, if I remember right, the CBA says the practice squad goes up to 12 automatically anyway from the original 10 this year. But I'm wondering if you had any thought or if there's been any murmurs at all about those practice squad rules coming back for a 3rd year. I got to believe people like you like that a lot.
Yeah.
There's enormous flexibility.
Yeah, it's been talked about. I think it's trending, to potentially, be in whether it's 16 or if it's definitely going to be 12.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful for 16. I think a lot of people are. We don't have a farm system. There are some more leagues coming, but we'll have to see how that goes. Who can sustain themselves, but it's been great. Last year we didn't. I don't believe we had to go outside of our roster of practice squad to promote when we had injuries or COVID or anything like that, and that's ideal. And that's why we want to get guys. We don't just want to get guys that are card readers that can go up there and just read the card for the offense or for the defense. We want guys that we, that we can develop. And it's
was a great card
reader. I'm sure you were.
Well, there's some that aren't as good, but some guys that we can develop that the coaches, and that's kind of been Sean and my mantra is develop every player that we have in this building, because if it's better on Tuesday when we've had a couple injuries at a position to go to a guy who's been in the building for a month or 6 weeks than plucking a guy off the street and teaching him and getting him up to speed. Even if he's a slightly better player, his knowledge of what you're trying to do is going to slow him down.
Ilianku was a good example of that last year.
Yeah.
Last one for me, along the same lines. This last year, you said, getting guys healthy and keeping them healthy. You stepped into the playoffs and right out of the regular season, really healthier than anybody in the league. I mean, and what is the science?
Find some wood to knock on now.
Right. It's been that way for a large portion of you and Sean's tenure here in Buffalo. What do you do differently, or what is it that has allowed you guys to remain? I know there's not all that.
That training facility
There's
helps,
some
I know
luck.
that.
Just a brief statement about what it is you guys do that has allowed you to do that and why.
Well, it's
Because it's not luck. You can say it's dumb luck. It's not.
It's not one thing simple. It starts with what Chris just mentioned: good facilities, all the various things, the modalities, and we emphasize a lot of prehab, like stuff to prevent yourself from having to do rehab, and it's also finding professional players who will do the right things. Whether it's their diet, their nutrition. What is your body fat percentage? We look at a lot of that, and putting them in the right weight so that, being in the wrong weight can get you hurt, pulls and things like that. And then just open dialogue with them. Where do they feel they're at their best weight? And I think there's just a give and take between our sports science. I mean, we literally, we have a file for every single player. So you and Chris may play the same position, but when you come in here, you may be doing something totally different than him based on age, based on your injuries, based on whatever. Right. And it's a lot of things, a lot of conversations, and then, of course, we have more data. We use a lot of the data, GPS, game reps, high-speed running, without getting any deeper.
It's also, I'll say this, too, for nothing, you've been down this road, too, it's having a coaching staff and a general manager and guys who will listen to the people in the medical side of it and give them a voice and some authority to say, wait a minute now.
Yes.
This is what we should be doing, and then to listen to them.
Yep.
Well, and that's gotten traction now. I mean, O.J. Howard even said it in his press conference. I mean, here's a guy with an injury history, really hasn't been able to get his career off the ground because of it, and even though he claims that, he learned some good stuff off the field from Gronk in terms of how to take care of yourself while he was down in Tampa, one of the biggest attractive qualities of Buffalo was that building right over there and everybody that's in it doing the work they do.
Yeah.
I mean, that's got to feel good when it's got traction around the league and it's attracting players for you.
No, it's funny. His agent, Todd France, mentioned that to me and Kevin Meegank, that is there any questions he has about us, or he's from the South, coming up north, and he goes, no, Todd goes, he actually found on some YouTube thing the video of your facility, and he was very intrigued by it and some of the stuff you guys do. And I said, well, if there's any questions we can answer. And he goes, I'll call him back and let him know. And we sent another video that was a little more thorough than what he had seen to Todd, and I think he sent it to him as well. So we knew it was very important for him. And again, that may not be important to you, but what we share with every player is we're trying to not only keep you healthy while you're Buffalo Bill, but we're trying to extend your career. And every year you play, think of the revenue. If you add 1 to 2 years, think of what that.
Let alone your pension.
Extend Vaughn's career, would you, please?
That's
Josh's too.
There's gonna be a lot of eyes and hands on both those guys.
Thanks for coming in, man.
Yeah, we know you're busy. We appreciate you giving us some time today. We'll let you get back to it because according to all the national reporters, you got some stuff going on. So we'll let you finish that up. Good luck with it. All right.
All right. Thanks, guys.